There are groups today that are appreciating the fight that's being had everywhere in America. They love the divisiveness because they make money on it. It does not lead us toward solutions that are going to protect our rural culture.
Many people that I talk to today reflect back on this history and this process as a time that said, you know, Farm Bureau might not have won every battle they fought, but at least they stood firm and they voiced the concerns of their members. And this is where we find that third Montana Farm Bureau principle. It's the idea that our approach and our attitude is what ultimately dictates our outcome. I don't think that there is anyone in more recent Montana Farm Bureau history that people loved to tell stories about than Bernard Harkness. Bernard was a sheep and cattle rancher from the Dell community around the Beaverhead County area, and he grew up tending his family's sheep bands on leased summer range out in the Beaverhead National Forest. One of my favorite stories about Bernard revolves around somebody who just said, you know, Bernard was just one of those guys that had grit. Like, he was just somebody who just had the grit and the resilience to get things done. He said he remembered when he was a little kid hearing the story about Bernard. He broke down on the side of the highway in an old truck that probably should have been retired from the ranch 50 years before with a full load of cattle. He hitchhiked his way to Billings and bought a transmission at the Army-Navy surplus store, went back to his truck on the side of the interstate in the middle of winter, fixed the truck, and got his cattle delivered within a couple hours. And he said there just wasn't anything that Bernard Harkness couldn't do. That's what he was remembered for. Through all these stories, you see that Bernard Harkness's leadership was the kind that really shined in scenarios that called for really deliberate, steady progress. He took the very traditional Farm Bureau approach. We take time to study, to think, to discuss, to hear, to decide, and then to rationalize long-term solutions. In studying Bernard Harkness's leadership and legacy in the Farm Bureau, there's a couple of things that really stuck with me, that really inspired me. And that's, one, Farm Bureau was built to be an organization for progress, not protest. And being part of a progress organization means that we spend more time focused on the process, in the approach to problem solving than the actual outcome. Yes, of course, we want the intended outcome and we want the results that serve our cause well. But at the end of the day, if we stay true to the process of progress, we'll win.
There are a lot of organizations that are committed to protesting. I call them the conflict industry. And they do a really good job of fighting. In fact, there are a number of, in the environmental conflict industry, there are a lot of groups that's how they make their money. They're constantly protesting. But you don't really get anywhere with that. And the advocacy that the Farm Bureau does and what they teach is how to take the next step. How do we turn a protest into a step toward resolution, a step towards finding a solution to the problem? If all we do is focus on what we don't want to have happen and protest what is going on, then we're not involved in crafting what a solution might look like. How do we move forward? What I enjoy about the Farm Bureau is they're constantly looking forward, trying to see what's the next bug to hit us in the windshield. And their approach has always been to facilitate resolution discussion. I think what I try to remember whenever I'm engaging in a policy discussion and I want to be progress-oriented and not protest-oriented, I ask myself, am I doing something that's participating in the environmental conflict industry? Am I fighting just so that I'm fighting? Or am I fighting as part of a strategy of leading? Am I in a process that's going to yield a solution, or am I protesting just because it feels good? And I have to ask myself that all the time. Am I participating in my strategy of leading, or am I participating in someone else's strategy and they want me to fight? The Farm Bureau kind of sifts through that with its process orientation. There's a place for protesting. Sometimes we have to draw a line in the sand, but we also need to know what the next step's going to look like, because if all we're doing is protesting, somebody else is going to design a resolution, going to design what a solution looks like, and we're not going to be involved. But the Farm Bureau has the best grassroots process in place for rural America. And they have leadership programming now to teach people how to get involved in the process and affect positive change.
If there were a theme that came out of this era of Bernard Harkness' leadership, it's that Farm Bureau members at the time were really pressed to contest this heavy-handed, top-down approach of federal government that seemed to be squeezing into especially western states of the era. It was completely the opposite of the Farm Bureau's grassroots approach to decision-making. One really good example of this approach was the 1964 Public Land Classification and Multiple Use Act. Now, this was a multi-year, $7 million study of federal land holdings. And in 1966, Farm Bureau hosted its first statewide natural resource conference. And the aim of this conference was to study the pending evaluation of more than 5,000 federal laws that pertain to public land use. 30 different counties across the state holded these local meetings to discuss and to gather information and to educate themselves about this federal land review. And over the course of nearly 20 years, Harkness and other Farm Bureau leaders, they consistently and persistently testified, contributed, questioned the proceedings of public agencies like the Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, and Public Land Law Review Commission. In the thick of these public land law reviews, the Federal Department of the Interior and the Department of Agriculture announced an increase in grazing fees on federally leased land, and this was in 1967. At the same time, the Bureau of Land Management announced new rules to amend and revise rules pertaining to grazing administration on BLM land. Now, Farm Bureau leaders who had been engaged in this process the whole time were at a complete loss. They said, now we can't understand why these proposed sweeping changes are coming at this time. And again, this was in 1968. And they said, Farm Bureau, we've been studying this problem and we insist that there should be no changes in grazing fees or public land policy until this report that they had been participating in was actually finished and filed. They said we've got to stick to the plan and honor the process of gathering information and input from the grassroots. And the Farm Bureau leaders prevailed. The proposed grazing fee increase was postponed. These 10-year incremental increases would be implemented in 1972, but the Farm Bureau in Western states had won a battle that meant a lot to them, which is just time to adjust. They weren't against the changes. They recognized changes were coming, but they said, we have to be a part of the process. You have to hear our voices, and we need time to adjust. And that was a big victory in their time.
Bernard was indeed a leader. He was very quiet. He was a humble gentleman, but he knew how to do things in just the right manner to work with the people, bringing diverse groups together, diverse thought processes together. But he had just enough of that Montana, cowboy tenacity to, he was the kind of guy that didn't give up until he was able to move the dial. Regardless of how we as Farm Bureau members feel about something personal, we still understand, and Farm Bureau as an organization understands that in policy making, that policy book is absolutely the guiding principle. It doesn't matter how our lobbyists or governmental affairs people feel about things personally, they always advocate based on what grassroots policy dictates. And I think that is super important because number one, it builds credibility to the organization. In other words, we walk the walk and we talk the talk, and our policy is our policy stances rather are based on that very premise. Farm Bureau and our members and our leaders look at things from a little bit more holistic approach, and how can we actually serve our members well and stick to our policy book, but work together with opposing points of view to get things actually done, instead of just pick that 5-second soundbite to make a statement. In fact, I'll take it one step further. Farm Bureau is about making a difference, not making a statement. And that's the way they've always been. That's, I think Bernard Harkness and leaders before him kind of set us on that path, but that's the nice thing, is we haven't forgot that as an organization.
Bernard Harkness was president of the Montana Farm Bureau Federation during its 50th anniversary. At that 50th anniversary convention, Bernard Harkness delivered an address that has really stuck with me. I think about his words often. And what he said is this. He said, "The idea behind this movement was not negative. Farm Bureau has never been a destructive organization. Farm Bureau was formed to work for the betterment of the financial, economic, and social life of the American farmer, based on the fundamental premise that no nation is ever permanently strong and prosperous when agriculture is weak and neglected," Harkness said. And he finished by saying that premise still holds today.
Well, my dad was a very positive fellow for his outlook, not only in agriculture, but in everything he did. And very strong community supporter, and that's the way we were raised. And so that's all I knew, and so I thought that's the way it should be. And it was very easy for my sister and I to be following those footsteps. And when we came back to the farm and started trying new things, he was always open to that. Was always careful not to put the whole farm at risk, so we always started small. But he was very encouraging to try this or that, or give me ideas of when things didn't work, what might be an alternative, or how to modify it and make it work better. So I learned a lot from that, and that's formed a lot of the way that I think and the way I look at my community and my farm and everything I do.
I had the distinct pleasure of being on an international trade mission to Australia and New Zealand, and it opened my eyes to the other countries talking about how at that point in time we were becoming a international trade level, and we understood that we needed each other, and they were forming groups of trade missions and trade groups internationally. So I was able to bring that information back to my state board in Montana. And from that point forward, we had some of the legislators come and talk to us about those things, and we developed markets in Montana specifically to other countries. The unique thing about any events like Farm City Weeks or any event that brings consumers and farmers together is a greater understanding of why we're necessary. They just ask a lot of questions that we can answer that makes them understand. Of like, we all can't irrigate, so we just depend on the rain. So when we're having a drought like this one this summer, that's really an extreme event for us. We have to worry about water for our cattle and where to get hay and feed because we can't grow any without water. So water's really important to us. And things like that, and they'll ask a lot of questions that it gives you an opportunity to answer those questions. So it's a great networking with both merchants and just consumers and ourselves.
There's a reason why we're the #1 ag organization, both in Montana and nationally, and don't fix what's already working.
I have hope for the future of rural Montana because a lot of America's asking the question right now. They're seeing the failure of the fight. They're tired of hearing what's wrong and ready to start hearing about what can be right. I have more hope now for the next generation than I did 30 years ago. We're learning to lead. We're not just fighters anymore.